Hey, Ralph here. I wanted to take a quick minute to talk about recordings in Adobe Connect. The recordings in Adobe Connect are an awesome resource for our students, and if we don't take a little bit of time to show our students how to access the recording, the likelihood that they're going to access the recordings goes down significantly. So I try to make it a point in every class to show my students how to get into the recordings and how to utilize the recordings effectively. So just to give you an idea about how I go about showing them how to access the recordings. Obviously, the first thing is they have to know where they're found, and so I take them into the class and I show them the recordings button. Let me make that a little prettier. And so when I'm doing that, like I explain to them that it may be part of their classroom or it may be part of their transcript in terms of finding the class, but that is how they access the recordings. And then I go into the recordings and actually I highlight the the watch area to show them where they can. Oh, let me make that a little prettier again. How they can initiate the recordings. And so let me just go ahead and pick one of my recordings here. I click on watch. Obviously explain to them that they'll have to accept the agreement, and then I wait for the recording to load. Now this is going to take a little bit of time, but usually it doesn't take a significant amount of time. So this is where I usually spend a little time telling a little anecdote or a little joke and just buying some time while the recording loads. One of the things that you want to make sure you do right when the recording loads, typically when you're demonstrating this to your students, is that you turn the volume all the way down because it can get pretty confusing if you're talking in the recording and you are also talking to the students. So you kind of keep an eye on things here, let the recording load up, and as it's as it loads, the first thing I do is down in the bottom right, I go and grab that volume slider and bring it all the way down to mute. You could, I guess, also just go into Windows and mute your speakers, depending on how much your students are communicating with you. That may not be a big deal to do it that way as well. So a couple different options, but you don't want sound. And so right here down in the bottom right, that's where you're going to want to go ahead and drag that slider down. And so I go ahead and drag that down, and then we're in the recording. Now it's a couple things that you should highlight to your students when you're in the recording so that they can maximize the use of it. So here we're in the pre-class, so there's my fish swimming around and a picture of me and the fam. One of the things I like to do with my students is try to connect with them, and so I often will just put some random pictures up there so they see me, the person. But you'll notice over here on the left, we've got our class index, and the way I do things, I create these hard index points by creating different layouts with different names according to the particular topic that we're going to cover on that particular day. So there's a couple things that I want to make sure that I highlight to my students. Typically, first thing I'll do is I'll take them into a particular topic. Like let's go ahead and select VLANs and trunks. Okay. Obviously you'd want to point out the slider down there on the bottom of the screen so they would know how to move back and forth in the class. There's obviously the pause button as well that's there. Another thing that you'd want to highlight to the students. But as we're in a particular section of the class, in order to maximize the experience when they're watching the recording, again I point to a couple specific things. Those would be up here, the full screen buttons. So I've got a couple different things that I can full screen, and then also over here, this little tab there in the far left that allows me to minimize the index there. And so I'll click on that, show them that they can get a larger view and that they can bring it back by clicking on the button. So now that I'm in the larger view, I'll also show them that hey, if you want, you can full screen the lecture. So again, up here, we've got our full screen button. So you want to make sure that you highlight that. And so I'll go ahead and click it into full screen mode so that they see, and then I'll tell them that, hey, when I do it, I full screen my browser and I full screen the lecture, and that gives me a perfect view of what's going on. Go ahead and get out of full screen here. So I'll go ahead and do that. Sometimes they'll full screen me just to show them that they can, but I doubt that they probably will want to. But it's just a great tool, and it's really easy to navigate yourself around in this recording environment. And so giving the student the confidence that, hey, I've got this resource out there and it's a great resource, spending 5 minutes of your class, walking your students through how to effectively use the recordings. I tell them that I prefer to take my classes recorded because I can always rewind. The instructor says something that I should have heard, but I somehow drifted off. I can just go back 10 seconds or 15 seconds. I mean, they really are nice. It's a nice resource, and in order to make sure that your students know about it and are comfortable in using it, the easiest way to do that is to demonstrate to the student how easy it is to use the particular resource. So, I highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time in your class, walking your students through accessing the recordings and how to get the most out of the recordings, showing them the different options that they have inside the recording environment. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again soon.